Hello and welcome to this edition of Market Mantra, in which we give you a complete update on the economic, business and stock market news of the day. I am Anubha Rohatgi and with me is my co-anchor in Hindi, Vishal Sharma.
नमस्कार, मार्केट मंत्र में आप सभी का स्वागत। प्रतिदिन की तरह आज भी हम देश और दुनिया से आर्थिक, व्यापारिक और शेयर बाजार के ताजा समाचार आप तक लाएंगे और उन पर चर्चा भी करेंगे। चर्चा के लिए आज स्टूडियो में आमंत्रित हैं बिजनेस स्टैंडर्ड के एडिटोरियल डायरेक्टर A.K. भट्टाचार्य। भट्टाचार्य जी नमस्कार, मार्केट मंत्र में आपका स्वागत।
नमस्कार।
और सबसे पहले हेडलाइंस के साथ हैं अनुभा।
Thank you, Vishal. Domestic stocks decline around 1% amid weakness in global share markets. Sensex closes near the 57,000 mark. Nifty settles near 17,000 level. Rupee weakens to 76 rupees and 53 paisa against the US dollar, and Brent crude prices hover around $105 per barrel.
वैश्विक शेयर बाजारों में कमजोरी के बीच घरेलू शेयर बाजारों में करीब 1% की गिरावट। सेंसेक्स लुढ़ककर 56,800 के करीब और निफ्टी 17,000 के स्तर के करीब हुए बंद। डॉलर के मुकाबले रुपया हुआ 5 पैसे मजबूत और ब्रेंट कच्चे तेल की कीमतें $104.70 प्रति बैरल के करीब पहुंची। कार्यक्रम में सबसे पहले बात शेयर बाजार की। प्रमुख घरेलू शेयर सूचकांक सेंसेक्स और निफ्टी में आज करीब 1% की गिरावट दर्ज हुई। वैश्विक शेयर बाजारों से कमजोर संकेतों के बीच घरेलू शेयर बाजारों में ये कमजोरी देखी गई। बॉम्बे स्टॉक एक्सचेंज का सेंसेक्स 56,800 अंक के करीब बंद हुआ, जबकि नेशनल स्टॉक एक्सचेंज का निफ्टी 17,000 के स्तर के आसपास आ गया। सेंसेक्स 0.94% के नुकसान से 537 अंक लुढ़ककर 56,819 पर बंद हुआ। निफ्टी भी 0.94% गिरकर 162 अंक नीचे 17,038 पर आ गया। व्यापक बाजार की बात करें तो यहां पर भी गिरावट दिखी गई। बीएसई मिड कैप इंडेक्स 0.88% और स्मॉल कैप इंडेक्स 0.61% के नुकसान में रहे।
The Sensex and the Nifty today fell around 1%. Domestic stock indices declined amid negative cues from global share markets. The Sensex at the Bombay Stock Exchange closed near 56,800 points, while the Nifty at the National Stock Exchange settled near the 17,000 level. The Sensex lost 537 points or 0.94% to trade at 56,819, while the Nifty slipped 162 points or 0.94% to trade at 17,038. In the broader market at the BSE, the mid-cap lost 0.88%, while the small-cap index ended 0.71% down. In the Sensex pack, 6 companies logged gains, while 24 declined. In sectoral indices at BSE, 18 out of 19 indices witnessed losses. The overall breadth of the BSE trade was negative, as shares of 1,096 companies gained, while 2,274 fell. Shares of 115 companies remained unchanged. And Dr. Bhattacharya, we've seen volatility, of course, continuously, but yesterday the Sensex, the indices rose more than 1%, and today we see almost similar fall. What are the reasons for this continuing volatility?
Well, as you yourself pointed out, there are global cues at play. The global developments are there for all to see. I don't need to recount them, but quickly, you have the continuing Russia-Ukraine conflict that's going on. There is a lot of stress and uncertainty over the macroeconomic scenario in the U.S. There are also expectations that some sort of reaction or retaliation in terms of economic policy instruments may be in the offing with regard to Russia from the Western countries. So the global scenario and the supply chain disruptions caused by China. So if you take an overall look, you will see that the global sentiment is not very, very positive right now for the stock market. But what you also should recognize that the Indian stock markets have remained volatile. As you pointed out, that yesterday they were doing well and today they have fallen by 1%. And that is largely because also of the assessment with regard to the kind of impact the global situation will have on the Indian economy is still being assessed by the stock market. That's number one. And number two, my reading is that there is a country's largest initial public offer is likely to come next week. And in view of that, the LIC IPO I'm referring to, which will be opening on 4th of May, my sense is that because the markets will have to provide 21,000 crore rupees to this institution, so markets, probably a lot of people are trying to get out of the existing things, booking profits and keeping that money in tow to get into an opportunity that is waiting to be tapped next week.
You just mentioned the LIC IPO, of course. Like you said, it is till date going to be the biggest IPO of the country. 21,000 crore rupees, are expected to be raised. But is also, like you so rightly mentioned, is the volatility in the market also a reason for the revised valuation of the company? Earlier, the valuation was at 13 lakh crores. Now it has come down to 6 lakh crores. With the government also cutting its, earlier 5% was at stake, was being part of the IPO. Now it's only 3.5%.
It's very good for the primary shareholder, in this case is the government, to be very ambitious and present a very rosy picture about the valuation. And then, as we have seen in the past few months, there are some companies which have come up with a huge valuation. The share prices were launched through an IPO at a price which were eye-popping.
Yes.
And then suddenly the stock market realized that, listen, these prices are not realistic. So you suddenly see a crash, and then the inquiry is ordered after that. I think in this case, yes, they may not be reaching the same level as earlier was thought, but they are fair and yet attractive, because remember, LIC has got a return on equity which is substantially more than any of the private sector insurance guys in India. So therefore, even at this price, in my view, the investors will have something to take home and something to talk about. Having said that, let me also say that the valuation may be 6 lakh crore. The issue price is around 1.1 times of the valuation. Now that also, in a way, provides some sort of sentiment support to the market. So when I say that market will remain volatile, yes, they will remain volatile, but also you will probably see the LIC IPO providing some sort of playing an anchor role in days to come. There is one more factor that you must realize, that the government has not offloaded its entire 5% stake. It is only 3.5% stake. So therefore, if this tranche of the issue does well and the markets absorb this 21,000 crore rupees, I would imagine that the investors in LIC as well as the overall market participants will probably look forward to another round, maybe during the current year itself.
And, like we're talking about, of course, this whole euphoria around the LIC issue which is coming up. And we also see the common, like you said, people are actually booking profits because so that they can, put some money aside to invest into this LIC IPO. In fact, I was reading somewhere today that one of the companies have said that in last month alone, they've had more than 45,000 new demat accounts have opened, and which is also an indication of how much forward the investor is looking ahead to this IPO.
I agree with you. I would not call it euphoria. I think it's ordinary retail investors are still seeing, if I may use that expression, some juice still left in the market. Yes, the global developments are casting their pall over the Indian markets, but remember that the Indian companies are still very bullish on Indian economy's growth prospects. Just about a couple of days ago, the country's largest private sector association of India Inc., Confederation of Indian Industry, came out with a survey which suggested that the economy is expected to grow by not less than 8%. Number one. Number two, companies are promising and committing resources for fresh investments in the economy. Number three, there is a 75% of capacity utilization, which is now inching up gradually to 78% or so. The RBI survey also showed that. So therefore, the Indian industry, seeing capacity utilization going up, is probably trying to invest more, which to my mind will once again, hopefully, initiate a virtuous cycle of more investment, which will create more demand, and the growth will kick in, and the stock market, as we are discussing, will reflect that.
डॉक्टर भट्टाचार्य, यहाँ आपसे जानना चाहेंगे कि सरकार ने जो ये आईपीओ का जो साइज है, आकार है, उसको जो घटाया है 5% से आपने कहा 3.5% किया है, तो इससे कहीं ना कहीं विनिवेश लक्ष्यों पर भी कुछ असर पड़ सकता है सरकार के?
देखिए, जो विनिवेश के जो लक्ष्य जो थे, मैं समझता हूं कि उसमें एक सकारात्मक रियलिज्म इस साल में नजर आई है। पिछले 3 साल में हमने देखा कि सरकार की जो बजट में 2 लाख करोड़ का विनिवेश लक्ष्य, वो असलियत में वो उसको साकार हमने नहीं देखा, क्योंकि 2 लाख के बजाय में 40,000 करोड़ में आ गए। तो इस बार हमने बजट में क्या देखा? बजट में हमने जो लक्ष्य जो था वो 65,000 करोड़ का ही था। now 65,000 करोड़ का जो लक्ष्य जो है, अगर मान लेते हैं कि LIC इशू अगर 21,000 करोड़ का इशू सक्सेसफुल होता है, और बाकी जो छोटे मोटे के जो और भी कंपनी की जो लाइनअप कर रहे हैं, BPCL का भी है, मैं समझता हूं 65,000 का जो लक्ष्य जो है वो असाध्य नहीं है। वो लक्ष्य जरूर सफल होने की मैं उम्मीद करता हूं, क्योंकि ये लक्ष्य ज्यादा बड़ा नहीं, ये 1 लाख 2 लाख करोड़ की बात नहीं है, 65,000 करोड़ की बात है। तो विनिवेश के लक्ष्य की नजरिए से मैं समझता हूं कि इतनी मतलब इस वक्त हमें उतनी निराशा नहीं होनी चाहिए। पर हां, इस साल में क्योंकि रूस यूक्रेन की जो चल रही है वॉर से, और ग्लोबल सप्लाई चेन, चाइना की हालत अभी भी खराब है, वहां पे काफी हिस्से, चाइना के हिस्से अभी भी इकोनॉमिक डिस्ट्रक्शन से जूझ रहे हैं, तो उसके जो इम्पैक्ट जो आएगा वो आएगा, पर ग्रोथ में इम्पैक्ट होगा। पर मैं ये नहीं समझता कि बजट में जो विनिवेश का लक्ष्य है वो पूरे करने में बहुत बड़ी मुसीबतें आएंगी।
Dr. Bhattacharya, you just mentioned disinvestment. Now, one of the first, we saw Air India disinvestment, very successful disinvestment. And today, another story has come out, and news has come out that Air India has now moved the competition CCI to acquire Air Asia India, in which it already has more than 83%, stake. That is, Tata Sons has the stake, which is the parent company of Air India. So, what does this mean for India's aviation industry and for flyers? Because as it is now, Air India is the biggest flyer company. It's going to be then one of the biggest companies in India.
It's a very, very interesting question that you have placed. Air India, as you said, has been privatized. It's a private entity owned by the Tatas. Tatas used to own it 65 years ago. Now, Tatas have got around 2 other airlines which are in which they have a stake. Now, Air Asia is a company in which they have got almost over 80% stake. Almost it's like the Tata company.
Yeah.
Now, what they're trying to achieve is consolidation. Right now, Air India has a market share of around 12%. Now, with Air Asia under if it is the Competition Commission allows them to merge, then the market share will be 15%. So, and a merged airline will probably be able to take on the private sector competition and also global competition a little more confidently, with greater financial power, financial strength, and also a lot of synergies. Airlines rely a lot on synergies, technology like bucket pricing. So if you have, instead of 2 airlines, if you have 1 airline, so you utilize a lot of infrastructure, a lot of, the hub principle can be operationalized much more easily. So I see it as an extension of successful privatization of Air India, and Air India taking advantage of this to acquire a stake and completely merge it with Air Asia. And who knows, the next target could be Air Vistara.
जी, वापस बाजार की बात करें हम तो आपने कहा कि वॉलेटिलिटी बनी रहेगी अभी भी आगे चल करके, और जो आपने तमाम इसके कारण भी गिनाए, चाहे वो ग्लोबल मार्केट्स में से बिकवाली का वो हो दौर हो, या चाइना का जो आपने बात बताई, या जियोपॉलिटिकल सिचुएशन जो भी है रूस यूक्रेन को लेकर के। ऐसे में ये जो वॉलेटिलिटी और अस्थिरता का जो दौर चल रहा है शेयर बाजार में, उसमें एक आम निवेशक के लिए क्या जोखिम आप देख रहे हैं और क्या कोई अपॉर्चुनिटी भी आप देखते हैं इसमें?
देखिए, जो आम निवेशक जो है उनके लिए मैं समझता हूं कि ये जो दौर जो है ये बहुत सोच समझ के कॉशनरी होना चाहिए, क्योंकि स्टॉक मार्केट जोखिम भरा खेल है, और इसमें अगर आप अगर पूंजी लगाते हैं तो उसी पूंजी को लगाइए जिसको आप जोखिम भरे एक दौर में गुजर सकते हैं। तो ये जो स्टॉक मार्केट का जो खेल जो है अगले कई महीनों तक, जब तक ना आप जो विश्व की जो सारी जो अस्थिरता जो है थोड़ी बहुत कम हो जाए, दूर हो जाए, मैं समझता हूं कि जो रिटेल इन्वेस्टर जो है उनके लिए ये उनको ठीक तरह से सोच समझ के हर पदक्षेप जो होगा उनका सोच समझ के होना चाहिए।
We will continue with Market Mantra, but after this short break.
उपभोक्ताओं तक पहुंचने का सुलभ और सस्ता माध्यम है आकाशवाणी।
आकाशवाणी के विभिन्न केंद्रों से कीजिए अपने उत्पादों और सेवाओं का प्रचार विज्ञापनों के माध्यम से।
लोकल और राष्ट्रीय स्तर पर कीजिए अपने बिजनेस का विस्तार, क्योंकि आकाशवाणी में विज्ञापन बुकिंग हुई बहुत ही आसान।
अब घर, दफ्तर या दुकान पर बैठे बैठे आप कर सकते हैं विज्ञापनों की बुकिंग।
डायल कीजिए 870-001-4242।
नंबर एक बार फिर नोट करें, 870-001-4242।
ब्रेक के बाद मार्केट मंत्र में आप सभी का फिर से स्वागत। बात करते हैं घरेलू मुद्रा के प्रदर्शन की। अंतर बैंक विदेशी मुद्रा बाजार में आज रुपया डॉलर के मुकाबले 5 पैसे मजबूत होकर 76 रुपए 53 पैसे प्रति डॉलर के स्तर पर बंद हुआ। विश्व की 6 अन्य प्रमुख मुद्राओं की तुलना में डॉलर की मजबूती दर्शाने वाला डॉलर सूचकांक 0.53% की वृद्धि से 2 सालों के उच्चतम स्तर 102.85 पर पहुंच गया। भट्टाचार्य जी, यहाँ ये आपसे जानना चाहेंगे, जो डॉलर इंडेक्स है वो अपने 2 सालों के हाईएस्ट लेवल पर पहुंचा है 102.85 पर, ये क्या बताता है?
ये जो डॉलर की जो विश्व में जो एक अहमियत थी, उस अहमियत को मैं समझता हूं थोड़ा बहुत चोट या धक्का पहुंच रहा है, क्योंकि डॉलर का जो एक ट्रेडिंग पावर जो था वो रिलेटिव सेंस में अपेक्षित तरह से देखें आप, तो उसमें थोड़ी बहुत नरमी या दुर्बलता दिख रही है। और इसीलिए हमने ये देखा कि जो रुपए की जो दर जो है वो आज हमें देखी कि वो अच्छी हो गई है डॉलर के तुलना में
जी।
तो जो रुपया और जो डॉलर का जो एक्सचेंज रेट जो होता है वो बहुत चीजों के ऊपर निर्भरशील है। कितना सप्लाई है डॉलर का, कितना हम बाहरी जो आयात के ऊपर निर्भरशील हैं, तेलों के दाम कैसे हैं, तो हर चीज को देखते हुए मुझे लग रहा है कि जो डॉलर की जो दुर्बलता जो है वो चलती रहेगी, और भारत की जो रुपया जो है उसी लिए थोड़ी बहुत जो स्ट्रेंथन जो रुपये में हो रहा है वो स्ट्रेंथन इसीलिए होगा।
Do you also think that this LIC IPO which is coming out next week, one of the reasons for the rupee strengthening is also the expectation of foreign fund inflows?
Well, it could be attributed to that, but I think there's a 20% cap on this LIC IPO. So it's not a huge amount of money. Out of 21,000 crore, it will not be more than 4,000 crore or so. So it's not a big amount, but certainly sentiment will be positively impacted.
जी, और अब रुख करते हैं वैश्विक शेयर बाजारों का। सबसे पहले एशियाई शेयर बाजार। एशियाई शेयर बाजारों में आज कारोबार मिला जुला रहा। चीन का शंघाई कंपोजिट इंडेक्स 2.5% की बढ़त में रहा और हांगकांग के हैंग सेंग में 1% की वृद्धि दर्ज हुई। लेकिन दूसरी तरफ जापान का निकेई 1.2% लुढ़क गया और दक्षिण कोरिया के कोस्पी में 1.1% की गिरावट रही। सिंगापुर का स्ट्रेट्स टाइम्स इंडेक्स बिना किसी उतार चढ़ाव के लगभग सपाट बंद हुआ। यूरोपीय शेयर बाजारों की बात करें तो अंतर्दिवसीय कारोबार में यहां बढ़त का रुख था। लंदन का FTSE 100 और फ्रांस का कैग दोनों 0.7% और जर्मनी का डेक्स 0.3% की बढ़त में चल रहे थे।
Dr. Bhattacharya, here I would like to ask you, today we see that China's composite index has gained. Do you think China's central bank's decision to, which has announced stimulus measures and pledged to boost monetary policy support to support its economy, do you think that has also played a role in, because the shares were at an all-time high?
Absolutely. I entirely agree with you. I think the Chinese authorities, both the monetary authorities as well as the fiscal authorities, have stepped in a very constructive way. They don't want the Chinese economy to reach a point where it has face problems. And this is probably good news for the world as well, because with world trade threatening to slow down, it's important that China, which is the world's largest trading country, should remain free from any such disruption, problems, and this kind of stock market disruptions.
Let's move on to the U.S. market. U.S. shares tumbled yesterday, with the Nasdaq posting its steepest one-day rout since September 2020, as investors warily awaited U.S. tech earnings and remained concerned over Fed rate hike prospects and global growth. China's COVID-19 curbs and fears of aggressive U.S. Federal Reserve tightening continued to dampen risk appetite and lifted the dollar to new two-year highs. The Dow Jones Industrial Average Index declined 2.4%, S&P 500 fell 2.8%, and the Nasdaq Composite tumbled 4%. And let's move on to the story that we were discussing at the beginning of the program, which is the LIC IPO. Life Insurance Corporation initial public offering IPO will open on the 2nd of next month for anchor investors and from 4th to the 9th of next month for the general public. Secretary of Department of Investment and Public Asset Management, DIPAM, in a press conference today said the LIC IPO will be the biggest in the country till date, despite reduced offer size from 5 to 3.5%. LIC officials said the entity is selling over 22.13 crore shares between 902 and 949 rupees per share band. Total IPO value is set at 21,000 crore rupees. Policyholders will get a 60 rupee per share discount, and retail employees and anchor investors will get a 45 rupee discount. The IPO will be listed on stock exchanges on May 17th. And moving on to commodities, oil prices today fell around 0.5% amid lingering concerns about Asian coronavirus lockdowns. However, Russia's move to cut gas supplies to Bulgaria and Poland capped the fall. In intraday trade, Brent crude was trading around $104.50 per barrel, while WTI crude prices were at $101.20 per barrel. Dr. Bhattacharya, of course, the volatility that we see in stock markets is also continually being seen in the oil market, crude oil markets as well. But do you think, again, like I was talking to you about, we just mentioned the Chinese central bank's policy. Do you think that is also a contributing factor to the oil prices again, maybe, rising in the near future? Because with the central bank pumping in or maintaining liquidity or supplying liquidity, the economy will bounce back? It's possible.
That is certainly a possibility. But my sense is that what is happening right now is that even the crude oil market is responding to an impending slowdown in global economy. And an impending slowdown, the IMF in its World Economic Outlook report has clearly said that the global trade will come down, global economic growth will come down, emerging economies, the growth rates are being scaled down. So on the whole, there is a deceleration in the pace of economic activity across the world. Now, if that happens, clearly the demand for oil will also come down. If the demand for oil comes down, the market forces will be at work where the crude oil prices may not be in that much demand, therefore the prices will remain under check. So I think that whatever you're seeing in the crude oil prices, in spite of this conflict that's going on, some sort of escalation there also, the prices have not gone to the levels that were earlier feared. There were earlier fears a lot of agencies, rating agencies, analysts had talked about a crude oil price of around $150 per barrel, but they have by and large hovered around 100, 105, 100. So my sense is that the crude oil prices are also reflecting the nervousness in the global economies in terms of growth, demand and consumption. So that is what is probably keeping a check on crude oil prices, and this to my mind is a big relief for a country like India, which is dependent on crude oil import to the tune of 85% of its total needs. So that is also something that should be kept in mind.
But along with the crude oil, which is the biggest part of our import basket, the edible oils are also a big part of our, import basket. And now Indonesia has banned export of refined palm oil, and in fact it has levied an export tax on crude palm oil shipments as well. So given the fact that we are so dependent, we are still importing a large portion of our edible oils from, so the volatility in the crude oil prices and this ban by Indonesia, how will it impact the already soaring inflation?
You are absolutely right. It is not just edible oil. It will also the fertilizer prices. Fertilizer prices, the government subsidy bill will have to be revised upwards. The fertilizer prices will go up, and edible oil prices, which if it is imported, it goes up. Certainly, it will cast an adverse impact on inflation. Already, RBI has raised the inflation projection to 5.7%. My fear is that it should not go beyond 6%. If it goes beyond 6%, then the RBI will have to crack down heavily in terms of further hikes in interest rates, which probably in the long term is not good for growth. But of course, inflation management is an important role of the government and of the RBI, and let us see how it pans out.
In fact, the IMF has said that India, along with other Asian countries, is facing difficult growth-inflation trade-offs. Yeah. And one of the reasons is because of the crude oil prices, the commodity prices.
Absolutely.
जी, और पेट्रोलियम उत्पादों के घरेलू मोर्चों पर अगर हम कीमतों की बात करें तो आज प्रधानमंत्री ने भी राज्यों के मुख्यमंत्रियों से कहा है कि वो अपने राज्यों में वैट घटाएं। तो क्या ये संभव है राज्यों के लिए वैट घटाना?
देखिए, नवंबर में केंद्र सरकार ने 5 रुपए पेट्रोल और 10 रुपए डीजल में प्रति लीटर का दाम घटाया था, पर उसके बाद जो प्रदेशों ने कोई दाम नहीं घटाया। प्रधानमंत्री जी ने उसी का जिक्र करते हुए कहा कि जिन जिन प्रदेशों ने नहीं किया है, शायद उनका कर्तव्य ये होता है कि वो भी दाम घटाए। इन्फ्लेशन रोकने का जो उत्तरदायित्व जो है वो प्रदेशों के ऊपर बढ़ जाता है। मुझे लग रहा है कि केंद्र भी शायद दाम की ओर फिर से देखे और प्रदेशों का भी एक उत्तरदायित्व बन जाएगा उससे कि किस तरह से तेलों के दाम के ऊपर अंकुश लगाया जाए।
बात गोल्ड की करते हैं। मल्टी कमोडिटी एक्सचेंज में जून अनुबंध वाला सोना आज 30 रुपए की गिरावट से 51,555 रुपए प्रति 10 ग्राम पर रहा। मई अनुबंध वाली चांदी भी 175 रुपए मजबूत होकर 65,140 रुपए प्रति किलो पर कारोबार कर रही थी। न्यूयॉर्क मर्केंटाइल एक्सचेंज में सोना बढ़त के साथ $1,904.80 प्रति औंस पर था। चांदी भी तेजी के साथ $23.80 प्रति औंस पर कारोबार कर रही थी। और भट्टाचार्य जी, आप मार्केट मंत्र में शामिल हुए और हमारे श्रोताओं को इतनी बहुमूल्य जानकारी दी, इसके लिए आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
धन्यवाद, नमस्कार।
और चलते चलते मुख्य समाचारों पर एक नजर फिर से डाल देते हैं। भारतीय जीवन बीमा निगम का आईपीओ अगले महीने की 4 से 9 तारीख के बीच आम लोगों के लिए खोला जाएगा और इसकी कीमत जो रहेगी वो 902 रुपए से 949 रुपए प्रति शेयर रहेगी। इसके अलावा वैश्विक शेयर बाजारों में कमजोरी के बीच घरेलू शेयर बाजारों में करीब 1% की गिरावट दर्ज हुई है। सेंसेक्स लुढ़ककर 56,800 के करीब और निफ्टी 17,000 के स्तर के करीब हुए बंद। डॉलर के मुकाबले रुपया 5 पैसे मजबूत हुआ और ब्रेंट कच्चे तेल की कीमत $104.70 प्रति बैरल के करीब पहुंची।
Before we close, a reminder of the headlines. Life Insurance Corporation IPO to open on the 4th to the 9th of next month for general public. Prices to be between 902 and 949 rupees per share. Domestic stocks decline around 1% amid weakness in global share markets. Sensex closes near the 57,000 mark. Nifty settles near 17,000 level. Rupee appreciates to 76 rupees and 53 paisa against the US dollar and Brent crude oil prices hover around $105 per barrel. And that's it in this edition of Market Mantra. We'll be back tomorrow at 3 p.m. with Money Matters. Till then, namaskar. Market Mantra.